Ladies and Germans, how you all doing? This is Con Ulrich.
And this is Rangru. Hello, hello, hello.
And folks, we're back for another monthly tournament replay. Today on Sianno, who do we have, Rang?
Left-hand side in the blue, we have Yepcock playing as the first Fallschirmjaeger division with a flatline income. And on the right-hand side in red, we have Colonel Koenig 42 playing as the second New Zealand with a balanced income.
You know, I think today's replay will really prove to us if first is the worst and second is the best. For me, you know, I can't help but feeling that my expectations are going to be kind of dropping out of the sky, kind of like these Fallschirmjäger should be. But what's your thoughts here, sir?
Yeah, I mean, this is a classic DLC matchup here, first versus second New Zealand. I mean, very good infantry. For the first, it's a pretty good map for that long-range, scary anti-tank. And also a good map for Fallschirmjägers, so we're going to have to see how it works out. But same thing, you know, second New Zealand, great offensive division. You really do need to get that momentum and, you know, I mean, the incomes is going to make it interesting more than anything.
Yeah, so flatline, not really something we tend to see a whole lot. Why a flatline income? Is that just for that kind of consistency, or?
Oh no, you just don't see people do it. It's usually balanced or maverick, and those are the only two that matter. So, yeah, Koenig definitely trying to be a little bit anti-meta, which is a nice change of pace.
True. Very, very true. And I mean, and calling us some early, I was going to say from the first side, but we have an early Wolverine, which is kind of uncommon, because if you're looking at the first Fallschirmjäger, this is not exactly a super heavy armored deck. I mean, if you think about it, we saw on the decks just now, 7 Tigers, only one of those in A. What do you think he's bringing that in? It's not just for the HE, is it?
That's maybe just deterrent against any potential tanks.
Kind of that
and maybe just some long range.
Kind of that J88 down to the south, plowing through and absolutely wrecking the front lines of that first, you know, the second New Zealand line, but the second New Zealand defense line. Mm-hmm. And while there's a bigger armor concentration to the north, I can't help but feel that there's going to be a little bit more action going on in the south than we're kind of used to here.
Yeah, it's actually going on all over the place, really, for this map, which is quite interesting. I mean, that town push. I mean, who needs off-map artillery when you have J88 and the Fallschirmjägers? See how well they can push up. I mean, at close range, you can have a... say a little bit different. No. There's nothing really scary close range in that town, really. And we know Fallschirmjägers.
Especially the Diggers Piat. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's cute that those guys have all those elite Enfields, but a Piat's not exactly fired against a Fallschirmjäger, so...
Yeah. But I do like this northern positions, like, all over the place. I mean, both sides technically have parts of the town under control. We have the Nashorn for some long-range anti-tank fire support here. And, I think this is definitely just... The anti-tank capabilities has given the Yepcock the ability to make those maneuvers up north.
Exactly. And it's kind of fascinating just to check these things out, because down to the south, too, we're seeing a renewed kind of like demi-push. Some more infantry being tossed on in here. Is that any artillery coming in as well? No, just lots of Stahlstruppen. So expect to see a rather hefty push, probably within the next 2 minutes or so.
Yeah.
A quick look in the super south here. We are going to see that some of those Greeks are pushing forward. And remember, guys, this Katadromos over here, kind of the Greek version of the Pioneers. I don't really know how to call the Grease guns. We don't see them often enough to really be super familiar with them.
They're decent. They're a decent standard SMG, but they are nice because it's an 8-man flamethrower team compared to like the standard 6, so a little bit more survivable. And smoke grenades are never bad.
True. We are going to see more and more Kitty Hawks here, though, just hitting the front lines of the first Fallschirmjäger. And indeed, one of the backs, look, he's going to probably find that LG-42. That poor guy, right? Oh, no, never mind. So he's going to get engaged by the Italian. And the Italian blows him to pieces. That thing is way more deadly than ever I think it giving it credit for.
Yeah, it's got 3 20 mils and 2 50 cals, so it does have a pretty decent frontal armament here. And also decent, well, that was a pretty mediocre strafing run.
It has the potential to be super crazy strafing runs, that's for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, so far, Yepcock is definitely leading the momentum, and rightfully so. He does have the income advantage. Not a lot, but A-phase is really going to be his only income advantage. But worst case for both sides, I mean, the worst disparity has come in C phase for 30 points difference between Yepcock and Koenig, which isn't really all that bad. You can live with that.
You can. And like and almost kind of anticipated here, we are going to see the Stahlstruppen are making a kind of multi-step attack on this town, not trying to be seen by anybody in that town. Actually, I really do love this waypoint movement here, because it looks like he's trying to get behind those front lines first. Of course, as I say that, he jumps outside of the open and guns down that poor field engineer.
Yeah, I like this quite a bit. Yeah, if he can take his town, I mean, that's the story's a huge boon, because once you capture the town, it can be very hard to get it back. Especially on Koenig's side.
Mackerel. Those diggers just absolutely got evaporated. Good gosh.
Yeah, it doesn't help too that the diggers don't have any SMGs. They are pretty mediocre in CQC. I do think the Bren can fire CQC. I'm fairly certain it can. So it's not too bad, but still, it's not Stahlstruppen.
It can fire within about 120, as we just saw down to the south.
Yeah.
But the southern town, I would argue, except for that Spandau right there, everything else is falling to pieces.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. This is a really good push here from Yepcock. If he can get some heavy anti-tank into the forest, he can pretty much zone off that entire area.
Well, and he's got the opportunities, too. Miss Spandau, oh, geez, Spandau's already down. Are we going to see that move in, though? We have a Nashorn down here, but I don't think he's going to be super aggressive with it. Those Nashorns aren't in very high numbers here.
No, you got to keep him back, keep him safe, and let them do their business from preferably 2 kilometers away.
True. Absolutely true.
Yeah. But just seeing such a low investment down south here until right now for Colonel Koenig, I'm really hoping for his sake he can make something happen up north. He does have the far north under control, but he doesn't really have many of the flags in the town, which is kind of what you need.
True. I'm not going to say funny necessarily, but I do find it mildly amusing that this Sherman command tank has pushed on so much forward. It's good. I don't think I'd be trying to put any kind of officers really that far to the front, but I definitely understand why he's being as aggressive as he is with it.
Yeah, and there's no anti-tank nearby, so he is doing pretty good. It has to be kind of interesting if Koenig maybe was to just try to push all the way up the far north. I mean, it's not the best in terms of flag availability, but you could definitely, just throw a wrench into Yepcock's plan if he has to go and start defending the far northern flank.
Well, down to the south, we're going to find that Sherman down there is going to be finding his own sprockets a little bit disjointed here as this Nashorn moves up in towards the town. Solid position in that. I mean, assault gun, not a ton of armor, but really, really effective range if he gets a nice little skippity-doo in.
Yeah, and pretty much a guaranteed penetration.
True.
I mean, Pack 43 is... It's a pretty crazy anti-tank gun, really.
Absolutely.
It's a armor penetration disparity between previous guns of the same generation.
And we just missed a bombing run down to the south, or at least I did. But
I got it.
I admit I was looking. There's a smoking crater in the center part of the map, and it's the thought for half a second there was something important. Nah, just another crater.
Yeah, and I do love. I mean, he is following up. Yepcock is immediately from the bombing run with some Fallschirmjagers of his own. Great use of suppression and actually, moving up. This is what you usually see with people off map, but Yepcock will be doing it with artillery. I mean, aircraft, which is kind of a, version of off map, really. They're not on the map for too long.
True. Unfortunately, he is going to start to nuke his own troops as tube artillery is starting to engage as his own troops are going within that kind of unsafe area. It's very much a beaten zone, I would argue.
Mm-hmm.
But the rounds are dropping exactly where they need to. I'm actually quite surprised by this. The Cathedromas, the Diggers, the Field Engineers, these guys can't stand up to firepower, but that Kitty Hawk, that's going to be quite delicious.
Oh,
that was
good.
Well-timed.
Is he going to get the surrender? Everyone's pinned.
Except for that Grenadier. Whoa, where'd they get all this air power come from?
Jeez, yeah, that's a lot of air power here from Koenig. Very well timed, that's kind of saving his ass down south.
Stahlstruppen are still coming in. Where is that anti-air? It's not that they don't have it. Why did he not bring any anti-air in here? That is such a shame.
Yeah.
Belatedly, a couple of flak 20 mils coming down in.
Yeah, definitely a reactive measure that is. Because this aircraft did a fantastic job here from Koenig, but not fantastic enough, unfortunately. The
True.
Grenadiers and the mortars managing to really pave the way, and that's going to be a good capture. So far, I mean, Koenig's doing fantastic. You know,
Yes.
it's B phase. I mean, income is no longer an advantage, but it's not that big of a deal. It's only a 10-point difference. But he's still leading the momentum, and he has, you know, the flags where it counts.
True. Now, Digger's Piat over here in the front lines was surprised he hasn't surrendered just yet. I think just the MG42 has just not been quite as aggressive as it needs to be.
Nope.
The flak 20 mils? Okay, yeah. Essential position, probably a good idea. You want to make sure that Nashorn is healthy, especially in the view of all of those Kitty Hawk flights that have been happening so far.
Yeah. They probably could have made the Nashorn more protective from anti-air. They also just stuck a 20mm on top.
That would be actually kind of terrifying.
Yeah. Just like literally just boat it on top of the open part. So you'd have the guys in the 20mm and just below them are the guys in the Nashorn.
True. It turns into like some weird like 40k thing where you have 14 different
It's like sponsoring guns.
Exactly. Guards running next to it carrying the 20mm shells because it's cheaper that way.
Yeah.
Now, looking back to the north, because it's calmed down marginally here, and I say calmed down as a Sherman tank is engaging some NG-42 Grenadiers in the open. But it hasn't been quite as much friskiness as I would have expected. Usually this is where we see a lot of action over here on Sianno.
Yeah, usually like in the far north between kind of like his triangle forest, so to speak, but essentially Yepcock has finally managed to completely secure like the town right down the road, and he pretty much has it under his control. He doesn't have the north, but he has the flag in the north, which is really all that matters.
Also, interestingly, those 20 mils are not enough to give that Kitty Hawk away. In fact, the Kitty Hawk still is able to take out something else here. Wow. This thing is going to get 2 kills, I think, out of this bombing. Yeah,
almost. I think if not for the flak, it would have just been a 1 meter closer, and that Pack 40 would have been a Pack Gonti.
A Pack Gonti. I mean, I think is that from the Italian division. I'm pretty sure. Is the Pack Gonti?
Yeah, the Pack Gonti Sagatoro.
Exactly, the Pack Gonti Sagatoro. So 59 in the meantime, though. Like you said, we are into Phase B, which is mildly surprising that we haven't seen a little bit more active play just yet from Colonel Koenig. But
yeah,
guys, this is where we start to see some more Shermans. I think this is 7 Sherman card and an 11 Sherman card in C. This is where it's really, really quite important to keep all that AT suppressed or slain as much as humanly possible.
Yeah, I mean, like, historically in our replay, 2nd New Zealand is usually the go-getting, very offensive frontline division, but not so far for Colonel Koenig this match. He's definitely been much more on the back end, as Yepcock has been able to really utilize his air power and infantry effectively to get those important map control areas.
Well, you know, and I'm sure there's out there it's going to be a Kiwi who's quite angry to hear this, but of course the second New Zealand has to be offensive. Have you met any Kiwis? Nice people, but very, very direct sometimes. We do see a first Tiger over here in the north, a Tiger E, kind of flirting with the idea of going into the forest, which kind of makes sense. Tigers tend to be more of a plains kind of animal, or like, you know, loose scrub, but a thick forest, not really a great idea for it.
No, but he's going to try and hunt down that Sherman, yeah. It would be quite a surprise for that Sherman, which is trying to move up now.
And I imagine he's going to go start pulling back. Oh, never mind.
Nope. He's dead. Very, very dead. And LG-42 providing some nice long-range fire. I do forget just how long range... Yeah, it's got the 2-kilometer range. Even though for such a small gun, it has such a big package.
I'm going to let that one pass for the moment, but I will say, small gun, it's a 105.
I know, but like, look at the size of it. Like, it's like a tiny gun, but they managed to, you know, slap 105mm on that compared to a, you know, a regular German 105mm howitzer. You
know, Rang, I'm not going to say I've ever had to hear this myself, but isn't the important thing what you do with it, not the size?
It's true. It's a location and just...
It's the motion of the ocean and all things like that too, right?
All of that stuff too.
Now, Ju-88, this is the slightly marginally lighter version of bombing runs here. And again, I say slightly marginally more, lighter. It's still 2850 kilogram bombs. It's also going to fall relatively far from where it needed to.
Yeah, it was pretty anticlimactic.
What I am interested in is the fact that there's an increasing anti-air presence to the south. He's got 137 mil. He's throwing it a shnikey ton more of anti-tank and infantry squads down here. I don't know, but we might be seeing, if not a counter push completely, a kind of new defensive line being set up in the wake of seeing these Shermans and this Carrier 30 moving on in.
Yeah, that definitely does seem to be the case. But, yeah, I'm actually thinking about it. I mean, Koenig is playing balance. Looking at his deck again, he has a lot of C-phase units, so I think he's probably going to be a late bloomer in this case. I mean, he is getting some of the better stuff out. He's got the Maoris on the field, getting much more in armor assets. He still, needs to make a push happen now, try to even up to a 12-12. But, just depends where it's going to be.
Well, he's got to hurry because first Fallschirmjaeger, this is a bite and hold division. Yep. You can't. This is not a late game division. It's just they don't have the armored vehicles. They don't have the late game anti-tank. But if you allow them to get set up, good luck digging them out without a lot of artillery. Which, looking over here at the second New Zealand, they got some 25 pounders, but not for another 3.5 minutes. Or say 4.5 minutes, 3.5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, especially the first Fallschirmjaeger, definitely don't want to let them get near any cathedrals either.
True.
That would not be a smart move.
Well, we are going to see an off-map in the north, and, National taking out a Sherman in the central position. Off-map in the north, going to probably allow a bit of an aggression bit there. But I'm still waiting for the second New Zealand just to be super aggressive here in the south, and I don't think they're just getting... They're going to get wrecked here in a minute.
Yeah, I mean, both sides are meeting up here in this meeting engagement, and as you should know, Fallschirmjaeger is really, really scary. Yes, Hoplites are decent, but they're not Fallschirmjaeger decent by any stretch of the imagination.
Of course not, they got spears, man. They're farmers with pitchforks. Stahlstruppen in the meantime, those guys, I love that the Stahlstruppen, for the record, have the Beretta with the M38. They've got the FU-42, and they've got a Bren gun. They are the and a Molotov cocktail. They are a purely multicultural weapon squad right there.
I know, right? Italian, German, British, and Russian, all in one weapon loadout.
Oh, no, please. Finish.
Oh, finish, yeah, true.
And just like that, the Hoplites are finished as well, pushing back outside of that forest. And the Sherman realizes that without any kind of foot sloggers in the meantime, he's got to back up as well.
Yeah, especially if a Pupichin potentially is coming up to try and blow his ass up.
Oh, Ju-88 goes down. Sagittarius, I think they're not going to be there until too late. No, they are just not going to be there in time.
Good kill.
Very good kill. He doesn't get many of those. In fact, he's lost 50% of them right about now. So, well done. But the Pupchin over here, he will be able to take out that Sherman. Sherman's not going to see him. That stealth is just way too good.
But he completely misses. How could you, Pupchin? You had one job.
And then the other one picks it up. Don't worry.
There we go. That's where you bring two.
Oh, absolutely.
Never rely on accuracy.
I'll say pack tactics. Excuse me. We're back to a 14-10. Did not expect that kind of active play here. Really well done.
No, it's a great resurgence down south here. Just that fire squad of platoon worth of Fallschirmjaeger firepower down south wasn't more than enough to just push back, and he pretty much has an open shot to really digging himself deep into the southern forest position. And this is great an area for the first Fallschirmjaeger to hold. Lots of lovely areas for the Puchin, Panzer strikes, and infantry just to make taking it back a pain in the ass.
And a Tiger being brought up as well, just to kind of really lock things down. There's a aggressive Kitty Hawk here, and two Kitty Hawks really. Once he gets his bombs off, he's going after the Pupchin. No, he misses ever so delicately, and he goes down as well. So, failed twice.
Yeah, the anti-air is definitely starting to get a little bit dangerous here for Yepcock.
One thing that's kind of funny for me is that right now he's calling in artillery basically on his own position with that 6-pounder. Unfortunately, the 6-pounder is not going to make it out alive. That's the first part.
No.
The second part is he might be able to hit that Fallschirmjaeger Führer, but other than that, I think the Führer of the artillery barrage isn't going to hit much else.
Yeah, this is going to be pretty anticlimactic, I think. It's not the best use of his artillery, unfortunately, and Yepcock is, he still has all the infantry. We are seeing tanks being brought in that Sherman will definitely help out, but I know Digger's Piats aren't really going to, they're not going to be a good choice down south. There's no armor he's really having to contend with, and they just don't have the firepower to deal with Fallschirmjägers. He needs Harroways more than anything here, and just Oplates, good CQC infantry.
Very true. Very true. There is another artillery barrage to the north. The second one kind of happening here. And geez, another one happening to the south. Very optimistic artillery barrages.
Yeah, they're not really going to do too much here. That southern one again, it's in a slightly better spot. Could potentially, pick up a few kills if a few rounds stray off to the right. But, as we usually say with off-map artillery, I only really think it's worthwhile using if you're going to do an attack. And I don't think Colonel Koenig's going to do that.
No, unfortunately, I don't think so either. This other JU-88's going to go down, though, I think, unless he gets super lucky, which he does not.
Nope.
Now, there are small signs of life here or there. For example, there's Oplates and Maori over here moving into that southern town, able to pick off a couple of exposed units. Nothing too crazy just yet. And that artillery barrage did a lot more than I thought it would.
Yeah.
A lot more than I thought it would. Well done there.
And is he going to follow up? Kind of. It's a little bit slow, but he does have potential.
Well, and that's the funny thing, too, is I feel like the 2nd New Zealand, that ends up being another thing that really drives against it, is that you've got to be very quick to the attack, and they're foot sloggers. They're not really there to have a rapid assault. I can tell by the sense that you haven't immediately responded and said, yes, Con, you're absolutely right. You're going to disagree with me, and I'm okay with that. But
I just feel like with 2nd New Zealand, you just got to keep up the momentum, dictate the fight, and just kind of keep pushing. And even though you may not have super heavy crazy stuff, you don't have super uber immense crypt infantry, you have decent infantry, which if you can just spread them around and be a pain, you can do pretty good. And that's really hasn't been the case. Koenig has pretty much been on the defensive the entirety of the match, and his division just doesn't do well on the defensive, especially in straight-up fights against Fallschirmjägers. Really, these infantry fights have just been killing him.
The thought occurred to me just now that inherently both of these divisions are inherently super aggressive divisions. Fallschirmjaeger, you cannot sit on your heels. 2nd New Zealand, you've said already a couple of times.
You can kind of be pretty defensive with first Fallschirmjaeger. Once again, if you get the cathedral.
Yeah, but I'm saying you have to hit it. You have to hit hard first, though. You can't just lay back and allow somebody else to dictate, because it's another foot heavy division. You're not going to be moving super high columns of just mechanized material.
No, you just gotta play well with the Fallschirmjägers and then use all the heavy anti-tank and anti-air to set up the position afterwards. And that's pretty much what we've kind of been seeing. I mean, just look in the southern town. He's got that under control, and there's Tigers, Nashorns, infantry, anti-air all over the bloody place.
Absolutely. A couple of Wolverines being brought on, and actually I do like this call. These are where Wolverines need to be. Bring them in pairs, you stick them down here, there's a heavy tank, okay, good lord, quick, throw in a Sherman to distract, and then throw some Wolverines behind it to use their healing factor and kill it.
Yeah, distraction Sherman.
Yeah, exactly.
The classic. Exactly.
Yeah. Unfortunately, if you look at the attack move that's happening here, wow.
And honestly, it could succeed. There's just a lot of Fallschirmjägers. It's pretty CQC. Once they get into the forest, those Panzerfausts become rather scary.
And there's not much to stop them either. Yes, there's a couple of assassins, a couple of snipers. Yes, there's an HMG. Yes, there's even some of these Oplates, but not gonna be enough. It shouldn't be enough. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and just I think this match really goes to show just how powerful Fallschirmjaeger infantry can be. Just the sheer realm and amount of firepower at medium range is pretty nuts.
True. Oh, absolutely. Tiger, in the meantime, he's going to start being engaged by the Wolverines. Unfortunately, Wolverine, lots of claws here. I'm not really sure that's enough to take on a big kitty, though.
No. And yeah, the Fallschirmjaeger is going to make it to the next forest line, and we have the two Wolverines, but they're not really that scary, and the Sherman is in the forest, which is not ideal, but he has enough firepower to keep stuff at bay.
You know, one thing I'm surprised we actually haven't seen some more smoke being dropped over here by the mortars. Fallschirmjaeger's been pushed back for the moment, and that's fair. Awful lot of ferocious firepower, but at this point, they hold the western side of that northern-southern forest. There's a lot of directions there, I'm sorry about that. But it means at that point, the enemy infantry has to get super close, and their vehicles can't support them, which is a very, very hard place to be.
Yeah, this is like perfect area for first Fallschirmjaeger. Just good CQC, the Pupchins, and all the Fallschirm infantry work really well. And yeah, it's hard to maneuver around Shermans and Wolverines in a position like this.
You know, I took a quick look over here at the north. There was a rather tentative, it had a potential push coming on into that northern town. We just saw a German aircraft come in, slam 3 bombs into the ground, and now that entire thing is either rocked on its heels or surrendering. So, man, rough place to be if you're in New Zealand.
Yeah, I mean, Yepcock is really secured the north now under his control. I mean, he had the town for so long and pretty much all the important flags, but now just the firepower of the Tiger and the Pack 40, he's clearing up anything which tries to attack down the basin, and just clearing up anything in the forest.
It's really quite surprising that a couple of Tigers... Tigers always seem to be so hit or miss in so many of our replays. Either they're there and they're just absolutely terrifying, just, deployed in pairs with like a Panther as a backup or something, or they're paper Tigers and they get shredded by the first thing they see, which might include some infantry for that matter.
Yeah, most of the time Tigers and a lot of German heavy tanks are just not very good in 1v1s. They're way too expensive and they're such a armor penetration magnet. Yeah, they usually don't survive like the first few minutes of contact because everything in their mother is trying to drop cluster bombs onto them. So this is quite surprising, but he's keeping it back, the runs up north, and I think it's just good positioning all over. He's not being too aggressive with them, and Tiger's on a defensive, even though it's a little bit overkill, can prove to be pretty good.
Well, and one thing we haven't really talked too much about is we actually haven't we always sing the praises of tube artillery, but these mortars down south have been very, very good. I think for that matter, there's been some small mortar atop. No, who had them? There have been smoke to the north. I want to say it actually might have been that 25 pounder.
25 pounders, yeah. We're seeing the pounders go to pound down, but might be a little bit too late. But yeah, great use of the mortars down south too. I mean, the Fallschirmjaeger mortars are really good because they have the radio trait, so they are really accurate. True. And fast as fire. Like, just the radio trait in mortars is it's almost overpowered in a way. Same thing with the American 2nd Infantry mortars. Those things are ridiculous.
Well, it's like having the knee mortars. I mean, the only difference between that and the 50mm mortars from the Soviets are just marginally less accurate, but like... But yeah, guys, this is what happens when your infantry cannot spot for your tanks. We have 2 Wolverines and a Sherman coming down south. Might see a dead Tiger, but at what cost? Because there's all of this anti-tank right there.
Yeah, this is just a lovely defensive position. It's got the mortars, the anti-tank, the infantry all over the place, spread out. Like, this is exactly what we'll be doing with first Fallschirmjaeger.
Well, and sharpshooting are being attacked. Fallschirmjaeger being forced into a pin here. But you know what? That's fine. That allows the Tiger to kind of move on in and just start destroying, laying waste to this entire armored column. Kind of funny seeing those late Sherman 1Bs. I'm surprised that they only came out now. I kind of wonder if they would have been more effective deployed in the northern positions. The 105s.
Yeah, a little bit sooner, just for some fire support into that town. Because he does... Oh, yeah, it has some in B phase, so...
Yep.
Those would have been pretty decent.
Second Wolverine goes down, and that's the swan song right there, guys. It is the last 20 seconds. I'm sure we could probably say, and I'm sure you would immediately say, Second New Zealand, you said that once already, you've got to dictate the terms of the engagement. You can't sit on your heels, unfortunately, and I think that's unfortunately... Well, I think Colonel Koenig has lost his crown doing that today.
Yeah, I think he needed more Oplates and less Diggers PH, because a lot of those important engagements essentially came down to infantry fights, and Diggers PH are just not that great. I mean, it's nice they have a PH, and they're like what 25 points, which is not bad for a Piat infantry. But in terms of actual infantry fighting, they're god awful.
Well,
You need an obligate spam.
And look at the KD.
Oh wow! I wonder if jeez.
And the major killer right here was a Spitfire who took out 2 JU-88s at Pack 40 and a Fallschirmjaeger. Other than that, oh no, forgive me. There's a 17 pounder that killed the Northern Tiger and the Northern Nashorn. Other than that, though, brutal.
Yeah, and losses here. Carp picking up a few decent kills. Loft the Nashorn doing decent.
2, 3, 4,
One Fallschirmjaeger. 9 Roared.
Espen over here, he's got the 3 Sherman, 2 Wolverines, 3 Universal Carriers. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a really good display of the overwhelming firepower which first Fallschirmjaeger can really bring onto the field. Just the really high-powered infantry mixed in with some high-powered anti-tank. Sprinkle in a good defensive position, and they can be pretty good.
That certainly seems to be the case, that's for sure. So, unfortunately, Colonel Koenig is still in second place in this particular matchup, and the first Fallschirmjaeger does take the podium. But, when push comes to shove here, loved seeing the second New Zealand. Even from just a historical perspective, great to see the multicultural kind of side of that. Love it.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts there, sir?
Not today, no.
Well, folks, in that case, then you've got to come back over here later this week for another replay. Until that time, I'm Con Ulrich.
I'm Rangru. Take it easy.